Hi folks, HR Funk here, with a video that comes about as a result of a comment that I received during a live stream, and I'm sorry I don't remember who made the comment. If I did, I would give you credit for it. But the comment had to do with the introduction of the Smith & Wesson L-frame revolvers, specifically the model 681 and 686 in the stainless iteration and the 581 and 586 in the blued steel revolvers. And it had to do with the impact that those revolvers had on both the N-frame and the K-frame revolvers that Smith & Wesson had been making at that point for many years. And this led to a little bit of a discussion, and after the live stream I had been thinking about that, and I thought, you know, I have never done a direct comparison between the N-frame, the L-frame, and the K-frame revolvers in a back-to-back sort of way to try to see if I can really determine any difference in the handling and shooting characteristics, and if any of the three really is superior to the other two with regard to the way they shoot. So that has now been remedied because I spent a good deal of time on the range yesterday with three revolvers that I'll show you here momentarily. They are all three Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum chambered revolvers. They are all 4-inch barreled revolvers, but they represent the N-frame, the L-frame, and the K-frame lines. I came up with some drills and a way to score them, and I'm going to go into all that as we work our way through this video, and by the time it's finished, I'll be able to tell you whether or not I was able to discern any performance difference between the three, and if one of the three actually stood out as being superior. So here we go. Before we get into the substance of this video, I want to make one point about the shirt that I'm wearing, and that is that I am no longer a working police officer. I retired a few years ago after a 36-year law enforcement career, but I literally have been there, done that, and have the shirt. And I thought it looked good in the video. So I'm not trying to pass myself off as still a working police officer. I just thought this looked good since we're going to be talking about revolvers that were once very popular in police work. So without further delay, here are the three revolvers representing the respective frame sizes in the Smith & Wesson line. And these revolvers also represent different eras of Smith & Wesson production. On the far left is my recently acquired new production Model 27. In the middle is a 1990s vintage Model 686. And on the far right is a 1970s vintage Model 66. As I said, each of these is a 4-inch revolver. They are all in their factory configuration. There are no super slick gunsmith trigger jobs. There's no porting. There's no nothing like that. The only thing that has been changed since these revolvers left the factory is I added the Tyler T grip adapter to my Model 27 because I think it gives it sort of that cool 1950s vibe. I like the way it looks, and it does actually give you a little bit more to hold on to, even though the factory Magna grips are not bad. Turning our attention to weight, which is going to be a factor in both the handling characteristics and recoil characteristics of these three revolvers. The Model 27 N-frame weighs in at 43.3 ounces. The L-frame 686 is 40.1 ounces. And the Model 66 comes in at a svelte 35.4 ounces. The ammunition for today's test is going to be Fiocchi 158 grain 357 Magnum ammunition, and this is full power 357 ammo. It's good stuff. I did not chronograph it, but I could tell by the recoil impulse that this is not a soft load. Scoring for today's test is going to be based on this target, and I hope you can see these scoring areas in the target. I tried to do some different things with my lighting and position of the camera to make these a little bit more visible, and at least when I look through the viewfinder of the camera, these look like they're very hard to see. But when I fire the drills, any shots striking inside of this center scoring area are going to receive 3 points. Any shots in the next larger scoring area here will receive 2 points. Anything outside of that area, but inside of this silhouette, will receive 1 point, and anything completely outside the silhouette will receive 0 points. For the designated headshots, anything that strikes inside of this triangle will receive 3 points. Anything outside the triangle, but inside of this scoring area, will receive 2 points. Anything outside of the scoring area will receive 0 points. When a shot is fired, if it breaks the line of the scoring area, it will receive the higher value. So if there's one that's partly in the 2 area, but it breaks the line, it gets a value of 3. Same thing with the head. If one is in the 2 area, but it breaks this center area, it gets 3 points. To determine the score of each respective revolver, I'm going to be firing 4 different defensive drills from 4 different distances. From a distance of 5 yards, I'm going to fire 2 consecutive controlled pairs. From a distance of 7 yards, I'll fire 2 consecutive failure drills, which is 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head. From a distance of 15 yards, I'll fire a 3-shot unsupported group. And from a distance of 25 yards, I'll be firing a 3-shot unsupported group. And I'm actually firing not quite from 25 yards based on the range that I'm using. It's going to be more like 23 yards, but I think that's going to be close enough to 25 to accomplish what I'm trying to. Each of the drills is going to be timed, and it's going to be initiated by my shot timer. And I'm going to be starting from the holster when I fire these drills because I think the handling characteristics and heft of these revolvers is going to play a factor in their effectiveness. So I do want to actually draw them. I am not securing the thumb snap on my holster. Reason being, if I bobble that thumb snap as I'm making my draw, I don't want that to hinder the score of that revolver. So if you're watching closely, you'll see that I'm not actually breaking the thumb snap, and I'm doing that intentionally. When I get all done with firing the shots for score, I'm going to take a look at the time for each of those drills, and I'm going to subtract the time from the score that the revolver received on that drill. Now, I always get people saying, why don't you do the score divided by time like they do in competition? The reason is because that scoring method tends to emphasize time over accuracy. For defensive shooting, I always prefer to emphasize accuracy over time, and then I have a time penalty because obviously time is still a factor, but we can never spray and pray in a defensive situation, so I always emphasize accuracy in my shooting. That's the reason I score these the way that I do. A couple of last points before we head off to the range. First off, I did not shoot these revolvers in the order that you're going to see them in the video. I started out with the Model 27 and shot it through each one of the 4 drills. Then I switched to the Model 686 and shot it through each one of the drills. And then lastly, of course, I went to the Model 66 and shot it through each one of the drills. When I changed revolvers and before firing each drill, I dry fired that drill several times because I'm trying to give each revolver the best opportunity that I can to demonstrate its best performance. So I didn't want to switch from one revolver to the next revolver to the next revolver and do a round robin type of thing for this particular evaluation because I'm trying to see as best I can if there's a difference in the performance of each of the various frame sizes. The last thing I want to say is whenever I do a video like this, I always get somebody coming into the comment section later on and saying something like, well, in order to really determine this, you have to take a cross-section of shooters that represent all different types of skill levels, and you need to have a government grant, and there needs to be scientists involved and NASA and everything. I'm a one-man show, okay? In this video, we're going to have the shooter, me, as a constant. We're going to have the target as a constant, the ammunition as a constant. So the biggest variable in the performance of each of the revolvers is going to be their respective frame size and shooting characteristics. So if you're one of those people that always wants to jump into the comments and tell me that this wasn't scientific enough, I encourage you strongly to make the video you want to make and send me a link. I'd like to watch it. Anyway, here we go. Out to the range for the controlled pairs from a distance of 5 yards. Here's how they went. And here are the results of that shooting during the controlled pairs drill. On the right-hand side is the target for the Model 27. In the middle is the target for the 686, and on the far left is the target for the Model 66. I've marked all the shot holes for this drill with the black stickers that you see here. The Model 27 has 3 shots that were in the 3-point area and 1 shot in the 2-point area for an overall score of 11. The times for the drill were 2.95 seconds for the first one, and the second drill was 2.89 seconds. When we add that together, that comes up to a total elapsed time of 5.84 seconds. When we subtract that time penalty of 5.84 from the score of 11, the Model 27 had an overall score on that drill of 5.16. The 686 also had 3 shots that were in the 3-point area and 1 shot in the 2-point area for an overall score of 11. The drills were 2.49 seconds for the first drill and 2.50 seconds for the second drill for an overall time penalty of 4.99 seconds. We subtract 4.99 from 11, we come up with an overall score on the controlled pair drill for the 686 of 6.01. And the Model 66 started out strong. All 4 shots are in the 3-point area, so it has a score of 12 on that drill. And it also had, I think, the fastest overall time for the first time through the controlled pairs. That was 2.37 seconds. The second time through, I didn't get my grip quite as quickly, and that was 2.92 seconds. So that comes up to an overall time penalty of 5.29 seconds. So the Model 66 has an overall score on the controlled pair drill of 6.71. So the Model 66, due to its greater accuracy, had the highest score on that drill of all of the 3 revolvers. So now on we go. Next up is going to be failure drills from a distance of 7 yards. Again, that's 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head as fast as I feel I can accurately place shots on the target. So here we go back to the range. The shots from the 7-yard failure drills I marked with the white stickers this time around. And the Model 27 had a really strong run that time on the failure drills. All 4 of the body shots are in the 3-point area. And when I first walked up to the target and I only saw 1 hole in the eye of the target, I thought, did I have a complete miss? I had to play back the video to see that no, both shots went directly through that exact same hole. So that's quite a testament for the accuracy and the controllability that's afforded by the big end-frame revolver. I hated to put a sticker over this because I was kind of proud of it. Unfortunately, I had some other shots this time around on this drill that I was not quite so proud of. Before I get to those, let's talk about the score. So the Model 27 had a perfect score this time around of 18 points. The first time through, the drill took 4.30 seconds. The second time through, 4.15 seconds for an overall time penalty of 8.45 seconds, giving it an overall score of 9.55 on the failure drill test. The Model 686, I had this shot, I almost call that a miss. It did break the line, and I went back and forth and back and forth, and I decided that if anyone else had fired this shot, I would have given them the 2 points for breaking the line. So I decided not to over penalize myself in the Model 686. So I did give 2 points for this one. I had a good headshot there for 3 points, and all of the body shots are in the 3-point area. So the 686 had an overall numeric score of 17 this time. The first time through, the time was 3.56 seconds. The second time was 3.52 seconds for an overall score for the 686 on the failure drill test of 9.92. Model 66 over here did great with the body shots. All of those were in the 3-point area. The first headshot was a little high into the left. That's still in the 2-point area. And the second time through, when I squeezed off this shot, I thought it looked good, and obviously I just gave him a warning shot that time around. That was a flat-out miss. So the score for the Model 66 on the failure drill was 14. The times were 3.59 for the first time through the drill and 3.85 for the second time through, for an overall time penalty of 7.44 seconds. So that gave the Model 66 an overall score of 6.56 for the failure drill test. For the 15-yard shots, I used the green stickers, and the Model 27 had 1 shot in the 3-point area and 2 shots in the 2-point area for an overall score, numeric score that is, of 7. It took 5.65 seconds to shoot those 3 shots, so that results in a score, an overall score on the 15-yard stage of 1.35 for the Model 27. Model 686 had a 3-point shot, a 3-point shot that just broke the line here, and then a 1-point shot all the way up here. And for this one, the score ended up being 7. The time was 4.29 seconds, so that gives it an overall score for the 686 of 2.71 from 15 yards. The Model 66 has 2 good 3-point shots and a 2-point shot, so that comes out to a score of 8. And the time was 4.65 seconds for those 3 shots, so the Model 66 has an overall score from 15 yards of 3.35, giving it the highest score on that stage. From 25 yards, or actually 23 yards, the Model 27 has 2 good 3-point body shots and 1 shot that went a little bit high on me up into the 1-point area there, even though that would probably still be a relatively effective shot. That gives the Model 27 a score of 7 from 25 yards. The elapsed time to fire those 3 shots was 4.60 seconds for an overall score for the Model 27 from 25 yards of 2.40. The 686 has a 2-point shot, a 3-point shot, and this is one that I really hate to call a 1-point shot because that bullet basically is on its way toward the brainstem or the top of the spine. This guy's day is about to end once that bullet makes it there. Even so, this was not a designated headshot. It was a designated body shot. So the fact that this is where it happened to go doesn't change the fact that I didn't put it where I intended to put it. So I do have to go with 1 point on that shot. So 2 and 3 is 5 and 1 is 6 for the 686 from 25 yards. The time to fire those 3 shots was 5.08 seconds. So the overall score for the 686 from 25 yards was 0.92, and that was the lowest score actually from 25 yards. And moving over to the Model 66, I have a 2-point shot, a 3-point shot, and another 2-point shot for a score of 7. The time to fire those 3 shots was 5.31 seconds for an overall score for the Model 66 from 25 yards of 1.69. This concluded the shooting that I was doing through the drills to determine the scores for these revolvers. What I did next was tally the score from each different stage and add them together to come up with an overall score on the final evaluation for each revolver. And I'll go over those right now. So in the final standings, the Model 27 has an overall score on the entire evaluation of 18.46. The 686 has an overall score of 19.56. And the Model 66 has an overall score of 18.31. So the final standings are the Model 686 in first place, the Model 66 in second place, and the Model 27 in third place. And this kind of bears out the idea of the L-frame revolvers all the way back in 1980 when they were first devised. These were intended to allow the strength and shootability of the N-frame revolver, but be a little closer to the easier carrying characteristics of the K-frame revolver. And it does that nicely. There are a few other things, though, that I think played into this somewhat, and I want to talk about those before we wrap things up. If I were to focus only on numeric score from each of the stages and ignore time, the Model 27 actually comes out on top with a total score of 43. So this tends to also demonstrate that the Model 27 or the N-frame revolvers really do have an advantage when it comes to dampening the recoil and also allowing a good stable platform for pressing the trigger and firing accurate shots. If we think back about that failure drill from 7 yards and 2 of those shots that went through essentially the same hole as I was firing double action, that really was very impressive. But that sword cuts both ways because that additional weight hinders the presentation from the holster, and also the larger cylinder just takes a little bit longer to turn. So the thing that really brought the Model 27 down in the standings was the time component, not at all its accuracy. So something to be aware of with the N-frame revolvers, and depending on what type of shooting and how you are going to employ an N-frame revolver, that still might be a viable choice for you, whether it's a brand new one like this or one of the used ones. Another thing that I think slowed down the Model 27 just a little bit in each of these drills can be seen right here, and that is the Model 27 has blacked out rear sights and a blacked out front sight. Now this is a good combination for target shooting, and again we saw some very good accuracy from the Model 27, but when we factor in speed, my eye picks up this red ramp in the white outline with the 686 faster than it picks up just the all black front sight inside the all black square notch. So we factor in all of these little things and we see what contributed to the difference in the time between the 686 and the Model 27. Now what you might be thinking at this point is If the 686 is lighter and faster to present from the holster, and it has faster sights to acquire and a cylinder that's going to turn more quickly and all of that than the Model 27, then why did it finish higher than the Model 66, which is even smaller, lighter, smaller cylinder, and still has the red ramp front sight and all that? The reason being the weight of the K-frame Model 66 starts to work against it a little bit with full power 357 Magnum ammunition. Now, with regard to the presentation from the holster, I said at the beginning of the video, I don't think I've ever fired these revolvers just one after the other before. I've fired them all quite a bit, but just never going right from one to the next. And what I noticed with the Model 66, that difference in weight between the Model 66 and the Model 686 was very noticeable. The Model 66 seemed like it just flew out of the holster the first few times that I started drawing it. And that presentation speed was nice, but that also cuts both ways, because when I start shooting, the recoil impulse causes more movement in the revolver, and it takes longer for follow-up shots. And I think that's what we started to see with the Model 66. It was very lively with that full power 357 Magnum ammunition in recoil, and I think that's what caused me the problem on the failure drill. I fired 2 good body shots, but I was coming off the recoil of that second shot as I moved up for my headshot, and I don't think the sights settled back down quite where I thought they were going to as I started my trigger press, and I fired a miss. Now that's still on me, that's still my fault, because I was trying to shoot the revolver too quickly. I needed to slow down just a little bit and make sure I had that good sight picture before I started my trigger press, but that was my mistake. So we really do see that very nice Goldilocks type of a quality with the L-frame revolvers when firing full power 357 Magnum ammunition. If I was firing 38 special ammunition, then that might change. In fact, that might be an interesting test for some time in the future to see if the K-frame with 38 special ammunition has an advantage over the L-frame, or if the L-frame still maintains its advantages even with the lighter power ammunition. For anyone who's interested in the overall time standings, the Model 27, when I total all the times that were taken for all the different stages, has an overall time for the entire evaluation of 24.54 seconds. That's all the stages, the elapsed time added together. So 24.54 for the Model 27. 686 has an overall total elapsed time of 21.44, and the Model 66 has an overall elapsed time of 22.69. So again, we see the 686 come out on top for all of the overall elapsed time, the Model 66 in second place, and the Model 27 in third place. So there you go, folks. That's one for all you wheel gunners out there. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 7% off your purchase from Optics Planet. And remember, House of Pain, you can go to House of Pain Armament or House of Pain Munitions, and for either one, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFunk, and that'll save you some money off your purchase from House of Pain. And lastly, don't forget the Target sponsor. We saw some of their Targets again today. Go to Targets online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. Till next time, folks, good shooting. Bye-bye.